About 10 years ago, I was driving to class one night and listening to radio when a woman came on the program and explained to the DJ that unless a guy was using an iPhone 5 or newer, he was not worth dating. At the time, I was using a Motorola V3 Razr flip phone, and I really wanted to call in and ask her how many points that would knock off or what she would think of that. But I already knew. We have this weird dichotomy in our world that extends far beyond the city in which I live, where unless you have the right stuff, the right brands, the right clothes, the right car, the right attitude that a woman wants, she will write you out of her story regardless of what you have. And the things they write you out for seem capricious and arbitrary. Well, who cares what kind of a phone they have? I mean, I understand if you're critical of me because I don't even have a smartphone, but to dismiss me completely, not just because I don't have the right brand, but because I don't have one that's new enough, just seems incredibly superficial. Now, I have a smartphone now. I have a smartphone for two reasons. Number one, I broke my flip phone one day during quarantine on the corner of one of the benches in the lab. If you've ever seen the lab benches, they're that black, super hard material, very sharp edges. And I leaned in it against it. It was in my pocket. And it cracked the screen, which makes those phones completely worthless because the screen's only about this big. So I can't read anything on it anymore. So they're the same price at the time to get a smartphone as to get a flip phone. So I opted for the smartphone. That was my first smartphone, which is a Galaxy S5. Which means I'm not even new enough for this chick, even if I was the right brand. And now I have one because I have found that my particular carrier gives me service in foreign countries. And it is nice, if I need it, to be able to use calling services to call home and map services to find out where I am. I don't use it for navigation because the navigation in Europe sucks. But I can look at maps and I can read them, and I speak several European languages so I can navigate my way around or double check on things. Like, for example, when I was in Berlin last Christmas, I used it to double check the train schedule to make sure that I could get from my hotel to the airport, um, because I wanted to make sure that at the time of day, because I think I had to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, that I could make the connection, which connections were actually running at that time, so that I could get to the airport and catch my flight, which is something that you can't do unless you have internet access. So really, this gives me internet access abroad when I'm underway. But that's the only reason I need it. And if it weren't for trying to catch a plane home, it's not that urgent. There'll be another one in 7 to 15 minutes. No big deal. If I was living there, I wouldn't need it. I don't need it for translations. I don't need it for directions. I can read the signs. I can talk to the people. I had Google Translate on there. I've never opened it. So I deleted it. And so really it comes down to, what do you need? I remember talking to my carrier once, and I thanked her for not trying to sell me an iPhone. And she said, well, I can tell what phone you have, and I can tell that if you're still using a flip phone, it's because you don't want an iPhone. And then she said this, which I found rather fascinating. And most of the people who own them don't need them either. Most people don't need this. I mean, this computer has things in it that most people never use. I mean, most people use the camera. Some people sync their calendars, and I have stuff in there that syncs on the calendar to give me reminders about things that are important. Um, the calculator. You're not going to have a calculator wherever you go. Students laugh about that. No, I do. I don't let them use that. That's a phone, not a calculator. It has a calculator in it, but your calculator does not have internet access. So you can't use it to cheat. Because that's really what this is about. Is it's about giving people things they don't need with money they don't have to impress people that don't like them. I'm not going to buy an iPhone to impress a woman, because if that's the stupid standard, she doesn't like you anyway. I have learned from experience that if someone likes you, they will ignore things like that because they like you. Usually that's because you're hot, rich, or famous. And those people don't need to have those things. I'll bet if Channing Tatum had a flip phone, he would still be considered hot, even though he doesn't have the current mode of iPhone. Last summer, I had a whole class of students who all had iPhones, and they didn't pay for them themselves. They were using grant money they got to go to school to buy a phone. I told them that's not what it's for. but it's not my place to rat on them or to hold them accountable. It's part of the lessons that we teach them about shepherding resources and making good decisions with their money, especially since two of them dropped. So they used grant money that they have to pay back. Not a smart call. A lot of them aren't very careful with their phones because they didn't pay for them. And I learned very early on that you take better care of things that you had to pay for out of pocket. If it doesn't cost you very much, then it isn't worth very much to you. And so the fact that they didn't have to pay for them out of their own pockets means they want to appreciate them as well, take care of them as well, and ultimately they'll end up flipping them more often than is necessary. I changed to this one only because I was told by my carrier that since I had 3G service, I would not be able to get reliable connectivity starting in January of this year if I did not switch to a new phone. And rather than just do to a 4G, I went to a 5G so that if this phone lasts as long as that one did, then I won't have to upgrade to another one for years. Because I don't like getting new phones, and I hate paying hundreds of dollars for things I don't want. And I'm sure as hell not going to pay for the pretty pastels on the back. There are people who do this, and that's their call, and that's their value, and that's their system. And if that's your way, then Godspeed and good luck. It is not mine. And if you're not going to let me impose my standards on you, please don't impose yours on me. That's hypocrisy. And if you're going to judge me based on the phone that I own and not on the things that are inside me, then you've probably done me a favor. Sometimes I miss that flip phone for that very reason, because I'd pull it out and women would run away. And my favorite story about that flip phone is probably about 10 years ago now. I was up at the Walmart near here that's now been closed because of crime. And a woman tried to rob me in the parking lot. And she said she wanted my phone. I said, "You don't want my phone." And she said, "Give me your phone." I pulled it out and she said, "You're right. I don't want your phone." I said, "I tried to tell you." Because no one wanted a flip phone. It has no financial value, but it still worked. And so it was useful to me. This is how I feel about most things. The backpack here on the floor. I have no idea how old this is, but I got this when my friend died. She died in 2013. I don't know how old it is. I don't really care. It still works, and I'm going to use it. I don't believe in getting new things unless I need to replace them. I wear clothes until they wear out. I drive cars until they burn out or are stolen. And or if there was a woman in my life I really cared about who enough to where I listened and cared to what she thought. But there isn't. And I'm certainly not going to do this for some stranger on a radio show that I've never met and probably never will. Anyway, use your resources wisely to do the things you do. Be you, do what you do, and if you want to drink Dr. Pepper, do that too. Godspeed. Take care.